The Own Your Intuitive podcast is for the creatives, spiritual entrepreneurs, and light workers in the world. The shining ones who have been told to dim their light and stop believing in magic. I say screw that. The time to rise is now. To bring your gifts out into the world in a big way, creating a business that feeds your soul and your bank account. You are a magical being with the potential to change the world, one human at a time. The time for you to own your intuitive is now. Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce today's guest on the Own Your Intuitive podcast. I gotta say, we're part of the same, I guess we can call it a mastermind on some level. And I didn't know a lot about this man prior to having him as a guest. However, in this brief moment that we have connected, I'm going to call you the words master. And I'm going to want to delve into what that all means so that, we can give some people listening today some really cool tidbits and tricks that they can be utilizing today to maximize what they're saying. So today I'm really excited because this is like a deep dive into somebody I don't know, but whose energy makes my whole face hurt from smiling. Today I have Zach Messler, everybody, on the podcast. Hey, Zach, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? I'm so happy to be here. This is so fun.
I know. I've met you for like 8 minutes and I'm like, oh my God, our energy is going to be the most off the charts for everybody.
My cheeks are already hurting.
So for those listening who don't know who Zach Messler is, can you just kind of give them an overview of who you are and what you do just to kind of kick us off?
Sure. So I'm a messaging guy, right? So I'm marketing and messaging guy. So I spent 20 years in product marketing for B2B tech, business-to-business technology, where I had to translate all this complex stuff into words that grabbed people's attention and got them to act and got them to take action and buy our software at the time. And so I was helping, by the end of my corporate experience, I was helping probably about 200 salespeople and wanted to help a lot more people. So I jumped and here I am. So now I'm an advisor, a messaging and positioning advisor, and I help you know what to say and how to say it so you make a bigger impact on the world and your wallet.
So you are the words man. I wasn't that far off.
No, you're not that far off at all.
And so I love this because I'm going to want to know when you jumped and how you jumped and all that juicy stuff. But before we get to that,
it's juicy.
It's so juicy. I can feel juice in the story. So can we go back to your origin story, Zach? What is Zach Messler's origin story?
Sure. So, I'm gonna bore you because I'm gonna go so far back. So I wanted to, out of school, I wanted to work in Major League Baseball. I was a baseball fan. I loved it. I never really played, and I wanted to work in baseball. And so when I was in school, I sent letters to this is like pre-internet. I have a lot of gray hair. I sent letters everywhere.
Okay, but out of which school? Grade school or high school?
No, this is college. This is college.
Okay.
So I sent stuff out to all these teams, to everybody at these teams. I had rejection letters from George Steinbrenner and Marge Schott. I'm dating myself here, but I couldn't get into baseball. So my mother, I'm living at home at this point. My mother's like, you got to find a job. So I got a job with the National Audubon Society, and I'm doing composting programs. I was the king of shit. I was doing public education. I didn't realize it was marketing, but I was doing public education for composting, municipal composting program in East Hampton, New York. And so it was fun. And I dug it. And that led to, I needed to get a job after that. I needed to get a job. The funding ended. I needed to get a job. And I ended up in a job in baseball. So I managed the PR campaign for Pinnacle All-Star Fan Fest, which at the time was the roving baseball theme park that traveled around the world, around the country with the All-Star game. And it was awesome. And I thought I loved PR. I told you this is like the long, winding, boring story. I thought I loved PR. And then I got a real PR job and found out that I loved baseball. So what I really loved though was marketing, was messaging, was connecting people with an idea. And so I ended up getting into tech this is back in 1997 was my first job in tech. And I was trade show guy, where I'm going to events and I'm doing all the logistics and I'm setting up. But then I took some initiative to start writing the signage and training the salespeople. How are we going to get people into our booth? How are we going to talk about our product in a way that's going to get people to stop for more than 2 seconds and say, oh, what tchotchke are you giving away? That transitioned into lead gen, demand gen, which eventually transitioned into product marketing. Product marketing is a translation job. It's understanding everything about your product and everything about your audience and connecting the two. And so that's where I was for 20 years. I was in product marketing. It's really a misnomer because product marketing is really audience marketing. It's getting deep into the behaviors and the psyche of your audience, understanding them, really walking among them, being your audience, understanding how they think, understanding what their pains are, what their hopes are, what their dreams are. Once you understand that, coming up with the right words isn't so hard.
So take me back even further, Zach. Like, I want to go back to little Zach for a second. Like, was this like?
Oh, you want to dive deep? Okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like when I go origin, I'm like, where were you born? What was your family? Were you always kind of like into like all the ways that people were thinking and feeling? Did you like all the things?
Okay. So I was born in Philadelphia. I was born in Philadelphia way back in 1971. And I grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I was a firstborn of 3. I was a shy kid. I was a really shy kid.
Really?
Absolutely. And it wasn't until it was my senior year of high school, I was dared to try out. I was a band geek. I played mallet percussion. So xylophone, marimba, vibraphone with multiple. I still have mallets downstairs. And I was a shy kid, though. I was dared my senior year of high school to try out for the 1-act play competition. And I was dared. I got to do this. So I tried out and I got a part. And I was scared out of my mind. I had to get up in front of all these people. And I loved it. I loved it. And what I found was I get up in front of people and all my nerves just turned to energy. And then from that point on, it was just like, I have to be in front of people. Like, I love this. I love being in front of people. I love understanding what makes people tick, what gets people to laugh or cry or clap or,
So there's where kind of like the marketing really started to hit home. So then when you left, because I'm like, okay, my husband's going to be actually doing the cleaning up of this podcast, and like he put out an EP where he was a 1-act band, like he did everything for himself kind of thing, like not like with all the instruments all digitally, but he's going to be like, I like this guy already. Just that story, just saying. These are the stories I think that matter. These are the heart of like, I don't even know what the instrument that you just said was.
A xylophone.
Okay, a xylophone.
Yeah, so mallet percussion. So you use the mallets din, 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 instead of drumsticks. Yeah.
Okay, can I just ask a question? What school has xylophone as an instrument that you can play?
My high school did. My high school did. So the music department at Cherry Hill Public Schools was top notch.
The recorder and the xylophone and the ukulele. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we were pretty good. In fact, it's funny because I went to college and I figured, I'm going to play xylophone because I loved playing. I'm going to play xylophone, and I went to the orchestra. They had an orchestra, and I went to the first practice. And it was like, yeah, no, like this is not. It's kind of snobby, but it was like the level of play in that orchestra was not remotely close to the level of play I was used to. It's like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I haven't played xylophone since.
Really?
Yeah.
That was it. That was the end.
That was the end.
So then when you went into college, what were you going in for? because now you've just figured out this huge thing, right? Like you love people and you love to see
Yeah,
what
but
makes
I didn't even sure. At that point, I wasn't even sure. I didn't even know what I loved. At that point, I was still like, I don't know what I want to do. I went liberal arts. I'm a philosophy major. Yeah, I'm a philosophy major.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
that was too, the thing I love about philosophy too, is I used to get tons of shit. And, especially coming out of school, I got really good at answering the question in a job interview. Philosophy? What do you do with philosophy? But philosophy you learn how to think and you learn how to argue. And it's not arguing like you think, like arguing with a spouse or a sibling or a friend or something, or somebody at work. It's you have this idea. I have this idea. Philosophy teaches me to look at all of these barbs, everything that's coming in at this, and know how to refute it and learn how to so this ties back into everything I'm doing today for sure.
Yeah.
And I was not the greatest student. I did really well in high school, and I never really worked, and I didn't learn how to study. I never learned how to study. So I got to college, I did awful. So I don't have a lot of book smarts per se here, but everything that I do is rooted in that classical philosophy, because it's and I can't point to anything in particular, but I've had clients say to me, "Oh my gosh, this is philosophy," because it's taking things to the core elements. When I think of messaging, when I think of an audience, I'm always trying to, people want to dive deep very quickly, but it's going the other direction. It's going high, and it's looking at these core elements of all these different pieces that you have to play with. Once you understand the core elements are core values, brand promise. There's a lot of branding in this. I think about, you think about your audience. What makes your audience tick? What do they care about? Well, what are the things they care about? They care about their family, or they care about their, you might think of someone in a job, right? So someone in a job, they care about a promotion. But why do they care about a promotion? They care about a promotion because it makes them feel good. Maybe they have, they're uplifted because, oh, I'm important. It gives them a raise. So what's the raise mean for them? It's more money. More money means maybe I can do other things that I want to do with my family. So you see it, some people see, and this applies to everything. I know I'm talking about something that people listening may not think about, a person in a job, but this is transcendent. It works with everything. It's, instead of diving in deep into or rather, instead of staying surface with okay, this person is getting a new job or a new title. It's, what are all of the things beyond that? It's going a few steps beyond to understand, why does this matter to this person? Why do they care so much about this event, getting this new title or whatever? Does this make sense?
Well, this is really fascinating. Yeah, it is really fascinating to me though, Zach, because I think that from some level, like even listening to this, like this is like, if I kind of am comparing it to the sales conversation in some way as well. But like, you're doing the conversation with your client prior to even getting them to that level, but yet that conversation is still just as imperative in the text as it is in the call. Is that what you're saying?
It's not exactly what I'm saying, but it is.
Right.
It is. I mean, it's why, I mean, that's part of why I don't call myself a copywriter. Copywriting is a skill. I can do it, but I'm not a copywriter. I'm a product marketer. It is absolutely just as important to be able to say things in copy or in words as it is in a conversation like this. But everything comes back to, why does it matter? Why does it matter to my buying audience? And when I say buying audience, everyone is a buyer of something. I don't necessarily mean a product. Right now, I'm explaining an idea to you. You are a buyer of my idea, and you're either going to buy it or you're not.
Ooh, this is really juicy, because I think that This is like, but this is like, we're just going deep right away here, Zach, because I'm like, from the level of, first of all, philosophy, I think when you were talking about that, for me, I think being there, it's creating conversation without conflict, right? Like
Sure.
where, you know what I mean? No matter what the topic is, you can engage in a curious conversation without there being something that, you know, puts anyone in a hackle or creates discomfort with people. I think that's a very powerful tool, right? But the other piece of this is like, in terms of, I forgot what I was going to originally say here. That's why I'm like, what was that thing? It was really good, Zach. It was really good.
I don't know. You just blew me away with curiosity without conflict. I love that. That's great.
But is that not true in a way?
It's totally true. It's totally true.
Right?
It's
Because
totally true.
that's I
Well, it's
think,
like I had a lot of trouble early on. I had a lot of trouble with sales calls because of just that word sales. And once I reframed my brain and said, okay, I'm not going to sell anybody, I'm going to help them, it changed everything for me. And it sounds kind of hokey, and you hear that, you know, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. You see that a lot. Oh, don't sell, help. And it sounds kind of goofy, but it helped. It helped me considerably because now all of a sudden I'm my sales calls, I give advice and then I ask.
right. This is
No,
this is the piece that I remembered now. Just see, all you had to do was talk to me. And I was like, now I get it. Now I remember.
there's no conflict. So there's no conflict there.
And I think that that's beautiful. But I think that what you, like, I'm just saying from the level of, you know, even for me, I am triggered in a good way, not in a bad way. And maybe some people listening would be triggered too, is like, you know, everybody is a potential buyer, right? Like, I'm going to give you an idea and you're either going to buy it or you're not, right? But that isn't just about product. That's simply
That's right.
even about, you know, our beliefs, our values. Like, we marry somebody who believes or is buying what we're our value system is. So I just wanted to come back to that because in case somebody heard that and they're like, everybody's a buyer, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's of ideas, it's of thoughts, it's of emotion, it's of everything.
It's everything. Everything. Everyone is a buyer. Everyone is a consumer. Everyone.
This is so juicy. I knew this was going to get juicy. Feel the juiciness. Because I think too, right?
We need one of those voice filters that feel the juiciness. That's awesome.
I wonder if my husband can like distort one of
Oh
our
my gosh,
voices.
that would be awesome. That would be
The
awesome.
intro will have that as like the lead in here. Okay, so like I want to go back a little bit into the tech when you were working with tech, because I think
Sure.
that this might be to translate for people when they understand like tech isn't the most exciting thing in the land, right? Like people aren't going, yes, give me this gadget that does this thing. So can you give an example of a piece of tech that you had that you would, you know, how you would market it, like how you would shift it to give the consumer?
So the last place where I was is a company called Appian, and Appian sells an application platform. So an application platform is essentially, for the non-technical among us, it's software for building business apps. That's basically what it is. And there's a lot more under the covers that make it work and make it do all these cool things. But one example of how I messaged this was there's my favorite piece of marketing I've ever done. It was a video, and it starts like this. Now I got to remember how it starts. Hopefully you can fix this.
That's what I did.
Oh my gosh, I had it. It was so good, and I had you right here. Okay, now I got it. It starts like this. All those solutions you bought to help solve your problems, they've accidentally spawned a monster, and it's bigger and badder than you can ever imagine. It holds your data hostage. It keeps your processes blind from that ever elusive business context needed to avoid the wrong decision. And then it keeps going on, and it says, perhaps you recognize the surefire signs of a problem. You try it, I don't remember all of them, but it goes through all these problems. And then And it's just following a formula. I use this formula now all the time. But then from there, it's so what can you do? More stacks. So in tech, a stack is stacks of servers. So it's more data, more speed, faster tech. So more stacks. The monster loves that. Bigger, faster servers. That just speeds the wrong decision. Instead, slay the beast once and for all with Appian. Appian Records unifies your data, and then it gets into the solution and talks all about it. But what it has done is it has set up context, problem, solution. This is a formula for any type of, especially early stage messaging. Context, problem, solution. You used to hear all the time, and they used to teach in business school, feature benefit or benefit feature. You know, it evolved from feature benefit to benefit feature. You can see this happen in the evolution of even mainstream consumer stuff like car ads. Well, you know, whereas back in the day, you'd have Ricardo Montalban with the Corinthian leather of the Chrysler or whatever. And then, you know, Lexus, I wrote a whole expose on this, but Lexus had Smarmy Guy. He's Smarmy Guy today, announcer guy. And back in the day, though, he was suave and debonair. The all-new Lexus RX 350, putting the world on notice yet again. Used to be able to lead with that sort of thing. Then it transitioned to benefits. But the problem with leading with benefits is still all about what?
The product.
Yes, it's all about the product. No one gives a shit about your product. No one cares about your service. No one cares about you, your idea, or anything. They care about themselves. And that's why today you need context, problem, solution, if it's going to resonate. So context is that connection. All those solutions you bought to help solve your problems, they've accidentally caused a monster. Holy shit, I have bought all this stuff, and oh man, we have all these issues. I've connected with just one line. I've connected. Now I can get into problem. Well, what's the problem? And context and problem are often intertwined. Usually people spend too much time up front just focused on their product, their solution, their offering, and not enough focused on the context and the problem.
Okay, so I want to start asking questions. Just like question. So how long ago did you make the jump out of being in tech? Because I think that, first of all, I think it's amazing that you aren't tech savvy and worked for tech for 20 years. Let's just throw that on the table. That's awesome. That's got to be like, Archangel, I'm part of Archangel community, and Naveen, who ended up working, I think, with space shuttles and knew nothing about them or something, where he was like, going in without any information makes you the strongest person because you can actually come at it from a different angle, something that, you know.
That's so true.
Right?
So
and
true.
so like, that's kind of what I heard there. But like, you left tech how long ago?
It'll be 2 years in like 2 weeks.
And do you still market for service-based, or do you do it for like entrepreneurs and like coaches and those kinds of things?
I do it for both. I do it for both. I have different offerings. So mostly right now, my main focus right now is entrepreneurs, small businesses. That's my main focus right now. I still have a hand in the B2B tech jar because I love it. And so I do some corporate stuff. Mostly I write messaging guides. And I call it a sales pack. So in fact, this ties to what Naveen was saying. The way I was able to thrive in tech, outside of being a totally different voice and different perspective, was I broke everything down into its innermost parts. And so I would ask 3 questions. And this is actually, it's become my own method or system now. But I'd ask 3 questions, or really I'd answer 3 questions for everything in a product. So overarching, and then getting deep into every single little feature within a product line. What is it? What does it do? And why does it matter? Why does it matter to my buying audience, whoever they may be? And when you can get that simple and answer those 3 questions for this really complex stuff, then really complex stuff becomes really simple to understand. And the translation becomes incredibly easy to do because you're no longer talking about the servers or the platform or any of I can't even think of the terms anymore, but they don't matter. The point is, the terms don't matter. What matters is what your buying audience gets out of it. This is what I was trying to do unsuccessfully before, talking about the person who got that new title and the raise. That the raise and the title don't matter. What matters is why that person cares about the raise and the title.
What are they going to do? Yeah.
Exactly. What are those underlying reasons behind them? What are the feelings that they get from it?
Well, I was painting a whole story because then he could take his family wherever he wanted to go because he could afford to get his kids whatever it is that they wanted, because like that kind of stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like where that was the story I was painting. So it was working, just so you know, like I was going there. So just to get a little personal here, where are you now? And are you married with kids? And
I am. I'm in the Maryland suburbs of DC. And I am married with 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old daughter and an almost 11-year-old son.
So where in your journey did you meet your wife and all of that stuff?
It was about a year after school. So we met at a mutual friends engagement party. This is creepy crazy. Oh my gosh. So we both knew the woman getting married. She knew her from camp, from going to camp since they were probably 8 or 9. I knew her from school from the time I was probably 8 or 9.
Oh, wow.
So my wife knows all of these kids that I grew up with, and we'd never met. There's no reason for us to meet because I didn't go to the same camp as all these kids. So we met at this mutual friends engagement party, and I was being a wise ass. They're opening their gifts, and I was being a wise ass and cracking jokes, and she turned around and flashed a smile, and my stomach went through the floor, and I was like, oh, that's it. Oh, yeah. That was it.
And did you guys make a date right there on the spot?
No, I mean, we went out for drinks with everybody after, and ended up, we went out on a few dates, but yeah, it was fun.
That is a super fun story. It's interesting because like I keep coming back to this weird, strange thing where you remind me of my husband, because like Jeff and I, we lived, like his friends knew my friends, and it was like we were living parallel lives without actually ever coming in contact, right? And then all of a sudden when you...
No, I had an idea. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt you.
And then when you sit down and you start to have those conversations, you're like, how did we not meet all these years?
The craziest one of them all, my wife's friend Karen. So Karen is my wife's best friend from college. They're still super, super close. I was in playgroup with Karen when I was 3. It was like all the parents, get these kids together. Let's get all these kids together and play. Karen was in my playgroup. I have pictures from nursery school. There's Karen. Like, it's crazy.
Isn't that what I swear to God? Those are crazy. To me, that was what I knew the relationship was. I never wanted to get married until I met my husband, and we had this like insta bond of like being this connected without being connected. I'm like, clearly you're the one. The universe was like, come on, you guys.
That's
like,
awesome. That's awesome.
So I want to like transition into, because going from B2B into assisting like coaches and entrepreneurs, was that a shift? Was that different in some way?
No, it's not, because what all of this is fundamental. It's foundational stuff. So I can do this with anything. It doesn't matter. In fact, I've done some webinars and some other podcasts. One of the when I get into the technical of it, just how the tactical of how to do this stuff, answering these questions. What is it? What does it do? Why does it matter? Usually I use a glass. Right. I like using, see if I still have it. I like using a whiskey bottle. Right.
Okay,
so
for everybody, you want to go watch this on YouTube.
So it's a whiskey bottle. So I'm holding a whiskey bottle. This is a Barter House bourbon. This is a nice bourbon. So when I think of a whiskey bottle, if I'm going to ask, what is it? If I can't say it's a bottle, right? If someone doesn't know that it's a bottle, if the word bottle was actually fligabada, It's a fligabada. You don't know what that is. So what is it? Well, it is, I'm looking at this. It is a rectangular hollow piece of glass with a spout and a cork. That's what it is. What does it do? It holds bourbon. Why does it matter? Well, when you go on a podcast as sophisticated as Tamara's, then, you don't want to be uncouth and open the whiskey bottle and take a swig. And so, see, I'm on my glass. So I'm on my glass. That's really funny. I just messed this whole thing up. Can we rewind and can I do this again?
Yes.
So often when I do this, I use a glass, right? So I don't think I have a whiskey glass here, but so we'll use this instead of a whiskey glass. So I'm gonna say, okay, it's a glass. What is it? It's a glass. But really, what is it? Okay, it is a cylindrical, hollow piece of glass. What does it do? It holds liquid. Why does it matter? Well, when you go on a sophisticated podcast like this one, and you want to drink a little bit of whiskey, it's kind of rude to take the whiskey and just take a swig. And so you have a glass and you take it and you pour your whiskey in, and then you have your glass and you're very refined and you can lift your drink. That's why it matters. That's why it matters. And so you're asking me about, bringing this back, you're asking me about how can what works in tech work for entrepreneurs and work for coaches. This stuff is foundational. It's understanding what your product is, solution, offering, idea. What does it do? And why does it matter to your buying audience? And when you can articulate those things clearly, in a compelling way, in a convincing way, then you come up with killer messaging, and then you're connecting better with your buyers. When you connect better with your buyers, you sell more stuff.
So many curiosity questions here. So like, how did you transition then? Like, because I know that you left. Were you planning on staying in tech? And then how did you fall into where did the crossover happen?
So part of the crossover happened at Unfair Advantage at that event you were talking about before. I knew I wanted to work one-on-one with people. I enjoyed that when I was working in the corporate world, one-on-one with salespeople. And going to do work in corporate is not working one-on-one. It's working largely with teams or even doing the work. So when I first started, I was doing a lot of content creation. So writing blogs, writing ebooks, writing white papers, and that was my B2B tech work, doing some video work. And I burned out on it because it was a lot of work, and I didn't want to build an agency. I didn't want to scale it. And so about a year ago, little less than a year ago, I quit doing content creation. I came up with this idea. It was tied around the time of that event, Unfair Advantage event. I had some talks with people. It spurred some ideas, and I came up with the idea for an advisory service. So now I have my advisory service is really for entrepreneurs, coaches, small businesses. And it's called the Sounding Board. And basically what it is you ask a question, you get an answer within 24 hours. I use Marco Polo, which is, it's like video, it's texting for video. Yep. So you ask a question, you get an answer within 24 hours. And then twice a month, we jump on a Zoom for an hour and a half, and we go through whatever you want to go through. And if you don't know what you want to go through, then I have a program that I walk people through, which is how to come up with your killer message, where we first start with answering these questions. We dive into your core values. We dive into audience research and how to do it. And we start to connect that. It's connecting the core value of your offering to the core values of your audience. And that's what we do.
You're big on finding out doing the research for your audience in terms of do you poll people contact previous people? I'm just curious.
It's a little bit of poll. Well, here, how I came up with the name for the Sounding Board, right? I am absolutely a proponent of your audience. You don't need to be creative to come up with great messaging. Your audience will tell you everything you need to say. So the way that I came up with the name for the sounding board is I spoke with 170 something entrepreneurs. I put a thing out on LinkedIn. I said, I have product research question. I'm looking for small business owners and entrepreneurs. Not a sales call. I'd just like to have a quick conversation with you, ask you a couple questions. And I spoke with 170 something people. And essentially what I did, I said, I have this idea for this product, this offering. This is what it is. And I explained it essentially how I explained it to you. You ask a question, you get an answer within 24 hours. And then twice a month, we get on a Zoom and we go through whatever you want to go through and we uplift it. You know, I have this experience in product marketing for tech for 20 years. This is what I do. And you know, what do you think? And 82, I want to say, 82% of them said, oh, you mean like a sounding board? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. So my audience named my product.
This is so fascinating because I'm an entrepreneur and a coach, right? So like, I want to play devil's advocate because that's what I love to do for the people listening. Because I hope I ask the questions that they're like, but what? So like from the level of like discomfort that takes for some people, right? So some people are not naturally able to, or don't think about like reaching out or making a post or doing all of that,
Sure.
right? In what level do you help? Like, so I'm just curious, do you help us like create the confidence to be able just put the fucking post out or just do this thing or to ask that question?
All of the above, all of the above. So I'm going to shift us slightly for a second. Yeah. So for any type of communication to be effective, business communication to be effective, it has to be clear. So it has to be understood. You froze. Am I here? I'm going to wait. Are you there? Now
no, you're back. Hold on. This is where the YouTube gives a like live kind of like this mess up happened. So my internet's shoddy here. So in order
that's cool. So for business communications to be effective, it has to be three things. It has to be clear. So it has to be understood. It has to be compelling. So that means it has to grab attention and hold on to it. And it has to be convincing. It has to persuade your audience to take action. So the compelling piece of it is really what you're talking about. It doesn't sound like it is, but it's what you're talking about, right? So to be compelling or to put things out there that you're uncomfortable doing, that's 100% how to be compelling. The way to be compelling is not to be more creative. It's to take a deep breath, swallow the big lump in your throat, and just frickin' do it. And that's it. And what happens when you get over that discomfort is amazing things happen. And you find out that all of these fears of doing these things, all that discomfort really was all here.
Right. So now can I ask marketing questions?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Because I'm like, I'm like, even having done this for 2.5, almost 3 years, right? Like there's a level in which people are like, when are we too much? Like, is it too much? How often do you market? How often do you place this stuff in front of your audience? Do you continuously do it? All those questions.
Sure. That's a good question. I think that channels are important. Going where your audience is important. I think that I know consistency is super important. And going again and again and again with the same message is a good idea, not a bad idea. Do you have to do it every single day? No, I don't think you have to do it every single day. It helps to do it every single day when you're starting off with a new idea, when, you have a new offering or a new promotion or a new whatever way to get people engaged. But you don't want to be out there a lot, especially on social. You do want to be out there a lot.
But can I, like, in terms, I totally get the consistency of showing up and putting value out every single day. But in terms of the ask, in terms of saying,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So if you don't put a call to action on stuff, nobody's going to act. So I don't think that I don't think you have to put a call to action all the time, but it's also understanding that a call to action does not necessarily even have to mean a purchase. A call to action can be make a comment. A call to action can be share this with someone who you think could learn from it. But having a call to action is absolutely, I use call to actions probably 90 to 95% of the time. Some sort of call to action.
Yeah. See, this is what I think people want to hear, right? Like
Yeah,
that level of,
yeah.
right? So then if you're doing a call to action, and it really is just the user journey, right? Like what to do next. You've read this. Did you like it? What would you like to do next? Like, would you like to engage with me? Would you like to look at this other thing? So then in there, this thing, would you like say, because I want to know this for myself. Would you like?
Sure.
Right? Where does the offers come in? And like, in order to put, because I know this from working with clients too, like in terms of the offer, it's like, do you want to put a story before the offer? You don't just want to be like, hey, work with me. That's like asking for sex, right? At the beginning of the date, you want to make sure there's a little wooing before you say
exactly.
But is there, like, would you say there's too much of that? Like the work, like the
there's definitely too much of what?
Like asking for the offer to get on the phone or a consult call or a this or a that, right? Like,
I do think there's too much of that. But that comes back to the same thing that we talked about before, which is it's a fundamental, I don't want to call it a fact, but it's fundamental these days. No one gives a shit about you, your product, anything about you, what you do, how you do it. They don't care about you. And if you start off too soon, making that offer too soon, talking about your product too soon, you still get audience, but you get the audience who are looking already for what you have. And you lose that market share, that potential market share of the people that could use your services, but don't recognize it yet. And so starting too soon with an offer that without context problem solution, this is what I mean. All of this stuff is so layered. It's really kind of cool, but it's so I geek out over this, but it's so layered. But if you start too soon, if you put offers out there too soon that seem, it's that word salesy, you're gonna seem salesy, and you don't want to come across that way. You want to come across as someone who's here to help. And so it's offering that value, but understanding there's a reason why people call it a funnel. You know,
well, you have to say why. You can't just leave us hanging like that. This is why people call it a funnel, and then
this is why intrigue. This is why people call it a funnel, right? Because a funnel is real wide at the top and real narrow at the bottom. At the top, if I start with an offer at the very top, then how many of those people, like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. If I want people in this group up here in my funnel, my audience, my whole audience, I don't know how many of them are ready to buy. I don't know where they are on their path to buy. I just know that because of these demographics, because of these psychographics, because of, I know my audience and their problems and how they think and how they feel and how they act, their hopes and their dreams. I know that this is my buying audience. A large percentage of this buying audience is not ready to buy. They will be ready to buy when they're ready to buy. If I go to this audience with an offer, then I'm going to sell to a certain percentage of them, but I'm going to lose every single one of them that isn't ready to buy because I'm not giving them context. I'm not giving them value. I'm not, it is definitely a dance, and it's definitely a balance. And anyone out there who says to you, oh yes, well, after the third email, that's when you put the offer in. That's not necessarily true. It's going to be different for different audiences. And the way to get there is to test.
That's a big question. I mean, that's a big thing. Like, and I totally get this, because even from entrepreneurs and from, coaches and things like that, they often will take it personally. I have in the past too, right? Like we put something
too.
We don't get the result that we want. So we must have done something. It's all about us.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. It's another mindset shift. So it's when I throw something out there and it does great, that's awesome. But now when I throw something out there and it bombs, that's awesome too, because I can see, okay, what did I do differently here that I did here? Oh, okay. Or I get a certain comments, right? You're getting, if you're not getting, if you're putting social content, social content out there, odds are it's going to have some emotion to it. If it doesn't, it should. If you're not getting emotional response, whether good or bad, or positive or negative, it's not good or bad, positive or negative, then something's off with that post. Does that make sense?
It's like my biggest thing to talk about right now with people is there is no good or bad. There's only data, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that level of getting past that paradigm of like, ooh, I did this, it was really good. Ooh, I did this, it was really bad. There is no such thing, right?
One of the things, yeah, that's right. Well, and one of the things that I think people get caught up with in social specifically is all the vanity stats, the views, the likes, the shares, the comments. The comments are great because you can mine them and see what people are saying. This is back to that audience research thing. But chart sales. How many buys did you get from that content? How many new leads actual business leads did you get from that content? Those are metrics that are going to help propel my business along. How many people took a look at it? Who cares? You know what? I've had posts on social that had several thousand likes, comments, whatever, and I've had stuff on social that had 20. And I have some that have had 20 that have made me a lot more money and gotten a lot more clients than the ones that had that, pseudo viral.
Right. So another question. Where are you on personal story in your messaging?
Oh, I like it. I like personal story a lot. I do think there's a lot of oversharing that goes on. I think it's a judgment call, but there's a fine line because you want people to relate to you. I struggle with this personally because my approach is all audience first. And so I always think about this. Like I have trouble myself putting myself out there as me. I'm the brand, and I am. And my website is zachmessler.com. It's me. But my approach is the audience is first. If you're putting yourself out there because you want your audience to relate to you, that's great. But you can take it too far where if your audience relates to you to a certain point, that next step where they feel sorry for you or they feel pity for you or they feel bad for you, like there's a little bit sometimes too much sharing, I think, that goes on. Anyway, that's it. I think there's too much.
Too. I absolutely think that there's definitively if the story is in service to where your potential person is, like if they can read it and go, that's me. Like I can read this and say like, hey, she's speaking directly to me. Like she's been there. I have felt that. I have been like, I've experienced everything she's saying.
And that's great. You can also do that though, without it being about you. Yeah, I had this. So I had, what's that?
This is where I get caught. Like most of my stuff is like, I am
But that's okay. That's okay. Some people you're talking about people before who are uncomfortable with putting stuff out there, right? Some of these people I'm sure have amazing stories, compelling stories to share that could help them bond with an audience. I am thinking of one person actually who I did a call with fairly recently who had this really traumatic emotional experience with her family, and now her audience is basically herself. It's people that have a similar type of experience, and she didn't want to share her story because she was afraid of what her son was going to think of her, about what her family was going to think about her, about what her friends were going to think about her. And so we said, okay, so I'll tell you what, meet Jenny. She said, who's Jenny? I said, Jenny's you, but nobody has to know that. Just talk about Jenny. She's like, oh, I never thought of that. And so we created this narrative around Jenny, and it served the same purpose.
Right.
But instead of picture this. So instead of talking about my story, now it's picture this. You're blah, 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 blah. And she lays out the story. Well, meet Jenny. This is exactly what happened to Jenny. Jenny had this, and Jenny had that, and Jenny had the other thing. But then Jenny and it becomes a narrative and becomes a story that pulls you in, and you're still feeling that connection. And then at the end, we're all Jenny. Oh, yes.
Nice. So what is like one thing, like if you could just drop a tidbit on somebody right now and say, like, if you did this right now, you would this would be a shift in your messaging. Like what
flip your message, make your message less about you and more about your audience. So for example, I hate to keep using me as an example. Where can we go? Where's a site we can go to? Because I'll show you exactly right now.
TamaraArnold.ca.
Right, let's do it.
Well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it.
Let's do it. Hold on. I'm going to open this up. Okay. Yours is pretty good. Hold on. Yeah, yours is pretty good. Okay.
Shared screen and everything. All right. I'm actually in the bit, like I have to redo my copy. Like that's on my list for this week. So
that's funny. So I don't think you have to flip your message, but looking at your message, shift your energy, transform your business. Transform. I used to have this argument in tech all the time. Transform is a powerful word, and it's a scary word. Because what's transform mean? Transforming is change. Who wants to change? Nobody. People are uncomfortable with change. So uplift is probably overused, but uplift I think is better than transform for you.
Do you want to know what I'm putting there now, moving?
Yeah.
So like literally the person I'm working with is like, a guide into the unknown. I help spiritual entrepreneurs create the space within themselves to hold success so that they can make a bigger impact with the world. So that like I'm actually answering what if they're like, what does she do? So that they can see like what the result would be.
So that's all about you. And I get it. It's your site, Tamara Arnold. There's a picture of you. But from all that stuff that you just said, what I'd pop to the top is make a bigger impact. What was that line?
I help spiritual entrepreneurs create the space within themselves to hold success, to make a bigger impact in the world with their stardust.
I'd find there are definitely words in there to pull to the top. It's make a bigger impact on the world with your stardust. You said something before that I don't recall.
Spiritual entrepreneurs, like I help them create the space within themselves. Create the space. So it's one line with one of those, and then a subline. So for example, when on my site, it's be perfectly understood is the tag, the top level. Be perfectly understood. Right.
And then but then there's a subhead. What you do is amazing. Help your audience see that too.
Ooh, I love that.
I'm connecting. You want to connect with your audience, and you're not connecting with your audience. You're telling them what they do. You're telling them what they can do with you, but you're not connecting with them. And that one line, when I look at mine, that one line, let's see if it does it. There we go. That one line, what you do is amazing. Help your audience see that too. What you do is amazing. I'm connecting. Yeah, what I do is amazing.
Right. I love that.
That's what we want to find for you. It's send me that copy. I'll send you something.
Oh, that's like everybody needs to work with Zach Messler. Everybody. He's amazing. He's the greatest guy in the world. So like ZachMessler.com. And
I do have, well, I'll tell you what, I started a new Facebook group. It's the Killer Message. So if you go to thekillermessage.com, this is where you'll go. Now I'm sharing my screen, but this is where
I know this is great for those who are not watching this on YouTube.
Yeah,
I actually said it earlier. This might be one that you want to go to, and you say, "Hey, I know some of the members."
Oh yeah, I mean we're still relatively new here, but anyway, I'm gonna stop sharing. But thekillermessage.com. So I'm sharing content in there every day that's a little deeper than the stuff that I normally do on social. So that's a good place to go to.
I love that. So finding you on your website, going to the Killer Message on Facebook. Where else can people find you if they're like, yeah, I love this Zach Messler. He's kind of like
So my yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm a big deal. I don't think so. My social platform of choice is LinkedIn, and that's really where I spend my most of my time, other than in the Killer Message. So LinkedIn, Killer Message, ZachMessler.com. You can email me, Zach@ZachMessler.com.
Love it. And so that's where people are going to go. We're just going to send them right there. And the other thing that I want to say is, because this is my favorite question, I'm a huge book nerd. I've been a book nerd my whole life. I'm addicted to reading. That's why I'm an author. And so you can only say one, and it's the first thing that comes to your mind, a book that has completely uplifted your life.
Oh, no question. This is an easy one. Do I have it here? It's up there. It's up there. 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss.
Really?
Oh my God. I have not gotten past the first, there are like 3 or 4 core sections in the book. I have never gotten past the first section. I've read it 60 times at least. I always come back to it. You want juicy story. I don't know. We're probably going over here.
It's all good.
But as I wipe my nose. So in my last job in corporate, I was working for a marketing VP or CMO who was incredibly old school, really more of a taskmaster than a boss, or a boss rather than a whatever. And I was constantly told what I needed to do. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I knew it was the wrong thing. Everything was feature benefit, feature benefit, feature benefit. And I wanted to quit. I couldn't take it. I started reading the 4-Hour Workweek. I saw it. I read something or saw something on it. I started reading it. And there's one question that he poses in this Tim Ferriss poses in this first section, which fundamentally changed my path. And it's, what's the worst thing that could happen? And he talks, the 4-Hour Workweek is definitely a blueprint for creating an automated, it's lifestyle design. So it's creating automated businesses. And I'm sure in those next 2 or 3 sections, there's so much great information about doing that. All I needed was that first section. It is all about breaking unwritten rules. And it gave me so much confidence to be more compelling, to be who I am, to do what I knew was right. And what he says in the book is the worst thing that could happen in any given situation is usually not that bad. And if you break it down and figure out, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And you write out, type out, what are the steps I would take if this thing came to pass? Then you nullify all of that fear. And the combination of nullifying that fear and understanding that odds are this isn't really going to happen makes you realize the worst case scenario really isn't that bad.
You're going to die a little bit inside when I tell you this. This is so I just did the interview with Neil, which will air the week before yours. And his favorite book was The Power of Now. And I told him a story about why I love that book. And the reason I love The Power of Now is because I love taking people to their worst case scenario. Like, what is the worst case? And so we talked about, I'm like, when you can take your worst case scenario and grab it by the scruff of it and stand
yeah. I love it. Fist bump, virtual fist bump.
I know. So I love that this is the theme 2 weeks in a row on the podcast.
That's great.
cannot make these kinds of things up, because the chances are my listeners are being run by the script of their worst case scenarios if this is the message that is being
I talk about this all the time. I talk about this with clients. I talk about this with my kids too. It's also taking this to the next step. So it's not just what's the worst case scenario and mapping things out and how am I going to address this. If you're focused in on the worst case scenario, you are focused in on the negative what ifs. If you're focused in on the negative what ifs, there is just as good a chance as the positive what ifs happening as the negative what ifs. We are wired to think about the negative, and I want to be safe. I want to avoid danger. We're not wired to think about the possibilities. If you can contrast, so you write down the worst case scenario, type out whatever. You write down, type out how you're going to address that. And then you put it aside and you let your mind go wild with possibility and think, what are the best things that could happen if I take this path? And go nuts. Like, for example, I'm on this podcast. Let's say, now I'm clearly not, but let's say that I am shy and introverted and don't like to get on video. And okay, what if I get on video? What if somebody sees the video? Oh, you could say, okay, what if I get on video and I bomb? What if I get on video and I have a panic attack? What if I get on video and those are all the worst case scenarios. And I map out, okay, well, if I bomb, what really happens? Well, I could ask Tamara am I saying your name right?
It's Tamara.
See, my wife's name is Tamara, so.
Oh!
I'm like saying your name wrong this entire time.
It's okay.
So Tamara's.
Tamara.
God.
Air. I'm
Air.
Tamara.
Hey, what's up, T? So T's gonna. I'm gonna ask her if I can restart, and she'll probably say yes, and we'll be fine. If I have a panic attack, what happens? Well, I take a deep breath. I ask her if we can reschedule, and we do it another time. But what's the best thing that could happen? Well, go wild. Some producer for Oprah sees this, and I get a book deal, and then I'm a best-selling author within in 2 years. Like,
why not?
Why not? If the worst case scenario can happen, why can't the best case scenario happen? And if you start thinking that way, what happens is, and this ties all into, this is like your jive, man, but it ties into everything that you start doing. And you get that positivity going, and all of a sudden, all that shit you were worried about seems so freaking trivial. Like, what do I care about this for? It doesn't matter.
You raise your emotional value, and then you call the same level of people to you, and opportunities magically start to appear, and like the whole thing shifts.
It's so funny. So this entrepreneurial journey of mine, right? Like everybody probably who has done this, there are super high highs, there are super low lows, and I don't really have these so much anymore, but I used to have these money freakouts. I used to have money freakouts all the time. Like, oh my gosh, I made $800 this month. Oh my gosh, I have no leads. Oh my gosh, it was crushing. And every time to get out of that, what I would do is, one, I'd focus on what I have instead of what I don't.
Yep.
And the other thing that I do is I take focused action, massive focused action. Okay, I have no leads. Great. It's lead gen this week. That's all I'm doing. Focused lead gen. And then I started going and cranking. And all of a sudden, it's like you're saying, things start, oh my God, opportunities pop up, and it just seems like luck. It's just amazing. And yeah.
I love this. I think this is the perfect way to end this episode.
Boom, shakalaka.
Boom. Yeah, where did that have to know where that came from?
Oh, boom shakalaka. So when I was a kid, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We used to say boom shakalaka all the time. Boom shakalaka. And so back in corporate, I had a small team. There's this one woman who was on my team who was wise beyond her years. Amazing. And I used to use this as celebration, right? So if somebody did a great job, it was like, boom, shakalaka. Like she said, dude, you got to write an article on, I was writing a lot on LinkedIn back then. It was part therapy and, part therapy for me when I was dealing with that boss. And she said, dude, you got to write an article. I dare you to write an article on LinkedIn about boom shakalaka. So I did. And it was fairly well received. And then she said, boom shakalaka is kind of like part of your brand. I dare you to put it in your profile. So, okay, what's the worst thing that happens? So I did. I put boom shakalaka in my profile. I didn't need her to dare me anymore. I'm like, I'm getting attention for this boom shakalaka. I'm going to start a hashtag. So I did hashtag boom shakalaka. Now I spell it differently, and I always have, mostly because when I was a kid, I didn't know how to spell boom shakalaka. Apparently it's SHAKALAKA. I did it phonetically. So shock like a ow, shakalaka, lock like a key in a lock. So hashtag boom shakalaka. And I started using that probably about 3 years ago on LinkedIn. And I started using it on Facebook and Twitter. And, now it just became, I created my own like emoji signature and I used it consistently. It's all marketing, right?
Yep.
It's all branding and marketing. And it goes back to the 4-hour work week and that section, which is why it's forever right here in my heart.
Right? Now I'm going to reread the first section because I found I'm like an energy person, and Tim Ferriss's energy is so intense to me that like when I'm reading it, it's like I'm reading Tim. And so like, it's just like him and Brendan Burchard are like, I love them. I love what they stand for. I love what they do. I love everything. But when I'm reading, it's oftentimes I'm like, they're so intense.
Yeah, I get that. I could see that. Yeah. So it was, it was the same thing with this emoji signature. I started this emoji signature for myself, and now on social, I use it all the time. It's in my emails. Sometimes I don't really even sign a name anymore. I just have these emojis.
I love it. Zach, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. This was super fun.
Anyone who, again, looking towards, marketing themselves, I can tell the magic that you do. Everybody reach out. And Zach, I can't wait to continue getting to know you in Unfair Advantage and on all platforms in all ways. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Amen.
Today.
Thanks for having me, Tamara.
If you've been listening to the Own Your Intuitive podcast and you are ready to step into your stardust and to shine your light out into this world, but you don't know what your stardust is and you don't know how to bust through your blocks, I would love to jump on a call to find out if the Chakra Business Academy is the perfect place for you to grow into your light worker self, to step into this world as a spiritual entrepreneur, making a difference and making an impact. If you're interested, you can go to tamaraarnold.ca/application and we'll be on a call in no time, and you'll be taking steps into stepping into your stardust and making an impact in the world with the exact purpose that you were put on this earth to do.